Imagine a map of Southeast Asia from the turn of the 20th century. It's a patchwork of colors, but not the colors of local kingdoms. It's the red of the British Empire, the blue of the French, and the orange of the Dutch. From the jungles of Burma to the islands of Indonesia, Western powers had carved up a continent. But right in the middle, one nation stands alone, uncolored by foreign rule. This is the Kingdom of Siam, today known as Thailand. It's a remarkable story, a tale of survival against impossible odds. While its neighbors fell one by one, Siam danced on a diplomatic tightrope, a lone holdout against the colonial tide. This isn't a story of massive armies repelling European invaders in pitched battles, though the Siamese were fierce warriors. Instead, it's a story of incredible cunning, foresight, and a willingness to change. It's the story of brilliant kings who understood the world was changing, and that to survive, their kingdom must change with it. They saw the storm coming when others saw only distant clouds. They learned the rules of the new global game, a game designed by Western powers, and then used those very rules to protect their own sovereignty. By the mid-19th century, the world was shrinking. Steamships could cross oceans in weeks, not months. The telegraph could send messages across continents in minutes. With this new technology came an insatiable appetite from Europe's industrial powerhouses. They needed raw materials, rubber, tin, teak, and new markets to sell their finished goods. Southeast Asia was a treasure trove, ripe for the taking. The age of high imperialism had begun, brutal and relentless. It was a time when European powers believed they had a right, even a duty, to civilize the uncivilized. The British Empire was a juggernaut. From its base in India, it pushed relentlessly eastward. They conquered the kingdoms of Burma, piece by piece, in a series of bloody wars, finally annexing the entire country in 1885. To the south, they established control over the Malay states, securing the vital shipping lane of the Malacca Strait. The red of the British map spread like a stain, consuming ancient kingdoms and redrawing the destinies of millions. Their power seemed absolute, their advance unstoppable. For any small kingdom in their path, the future looked bleak. The choice was often simple: submit or be crushed. Meanwhile, another great power was on the move. France, smarting from its defeat, cast its eyes on the eastern side of the peninsula. They began in what is now Vietnam, using the persecution of missionaries as a pretext for invasion. The Siam of the early 19th century was a proud and ancient kingdom. It was known as the Chakri dynasty, founded in 1782, with Bangkok as its magnificent new capital. The kingdom was built on a traditional hierarchical social structure, with the king at its absolute apex. He was the Chow Chai Wid, the Lord of Life, his power considered divine and his word law. The society was deeply feudal, with a vast bureaucracy of nobles and a population made up mostly of peasants and serfs. It was a system that had worked for centuries, built on Buddhist philosophy and agrarian rhythms, but dangerously ill-suited to face the industrialized West. When Western traders and diplomats began to arrive in greater numbers, they found a kingdom they called backward and strange. Siamese laws rested on ancient Hindu-Buddhist codes, which seemed arbitrary to Europeans. Court etiquette was bewildering. Officials prostrated themselves before superiors, a practice Western envoys refused to follow. The economy wasn't free trade. It ran on royal monopolies controlled by the king and nobility, frustrating European merchants who wanted direct access. The man who first truly understood the scale of the Western threat was a most unlikely figure. Prince Mongkut had spent 27 years as a Buddhist monk before ascending to the throne in 1851 as King Rama IV. This was no ordinary monkhood. He used his time away from the palace to travel his kingdom in disguise, learning about the lives of his people. More importantly, he became a scholar. He studied Latin, English, and modern science with Western missionaries. He delved into astronomy and shocked the royal court by correctly predicting a solar eclipse they had missed. A king who valued empirical knowledge over superstition. This deep learning gave Mongkut a unique and crucial perspective. He understood Europeans weren't just powerful. They operated on a different set of principles. He studied their history, politics, and technology. He realized their strength came from a scientific, rational worldview, and Siam had to adopt those methods to be taken seriously. One of his first major acts was signing the Bowring Treaty with Great Britain in 1855. On the surface, it looked like disaster. An unequal treaty like those forced on China and Japan. Mongkut saw it as a calculated, necessary sacrifice. He gave the British what they wanted most, trade, to prevent them taking what he valued most, his kingdom. When King Mongkut died in 1868, the throne passed to his 15-year-old son, Chulalongkorn. Having been educated by Western tutors, the young king would become Rama V. He was arguably the most transformative king in Thai history. He understood that superficial changes were not enough. To truly protect Siam from colonialism, the entire state and society had to be remade along modern Western lines. His reign, lasting an incredible 42 years, was a whirlwind of radical reform. The old feudal system made Siam look weak and fragmented to the west, so he moved decisively to centralize the state. He abolished the practice of prostration in his court, a symbolic modernizing act. More substantively, he stripped the semi-independent regional lords of their power. He replaced them with centrally appointed governors who answered directly to Bangkok. He created a professional civil service. He built a modern army and navy based on European models. He built a state railway system to physically and politically knit the country together. He was, in effect, building a modern nation-state from the top down. One of his most profound reforms was the abolition of slavery and serfdom. This was not just a moral crusade, it was a brilliant political move. It won him praise in the West, making Siam appear progressive and civilized. It also freed up a vast labor force for his new public works projects. He overhauled the legal and judicial systems, creating new law courts based on French and Belgian codes. This was a direct response to the issue of extraterritoriality. By making his own laws compatible with Western ones, he chipped away at the justification for foreign exemptions. The core of Siam's survival strategy was a delicate and dangerous diplomatic dance. King Mongkut, King Chulalongkorn, masters at playing the two colonial giants, Britain, France. They knew both empires wanted Siam, but not each other. A direct British-French border in Southeast Asia would mean constant tension. The kings turned Siam into an indispensable buffer state. Whenever one power moved aggressively, Siam appealed to the other. France pushed east, encroaching on Siamese Laos. Siam made overtures to Britain, warning London. A strong France on the border of British Burma was bad for Britain. They hired British advisors in government, creating a British stake in Siam's stability. But the game was dangerous and costly. The Paknam Crisis of 1893 was a turning point. French gunboats steamed up the Chao Phraya toward Bangkok. Siamese forts fought back. The French then blockaded the capital. Colonization suddenly seemed imminent. France demanded all the territory east of the Mekong, today's Laos. They also demanded a huge indemnity. With French guns pointed at the Grand Palace, King Chulalongkorn conceded. Yet diplomacy didn't stop. Britain did not go to war with France over Siam, but the incident spooked them. The crisis pushed Britain and France to the negotiating table. The Anglo-French Agreement of 1896 guaranteed the central core of Siam's independence, formalizing Siam's role as a buffer. The independence of Siam was not one without immense sacrifice. The strategy of appeasement and diplomacy meant that the kingdom had to bleed territory to save its heartland. Think of it as a strategic retreat on a grand scale. The Siamese kings understood a painful truth. The borders of their 19th century kingdom were vague, based on traditional tributary relationships, a concept Europeans did not recognize. To survive, they had to trade loosely held peripheral territories, which they could not realistically defend in exchange for guaranteed sovereignty of the core around the Chao Phraya Basin. The most significant losses were to France. After the 1893 Paknam Crisis, Siam ceded claims east of the Mekong. That loss effectively created Laos under French control. The French appetite continued. In 1904 and in 1907, Siam ceded more land west of the Mekong. Battambang, Siem Reap, Angkor Wat. These were folded into French Cambodia, a culturally painful loss. Britain also gained, more quietly. In the south, Siam had influence over Malay sultanates. To placate Britain, King Chulalongkorn signed the Anglo-Siamese Treaty of 1909. Kedah, Perlis, Kelantan, and Terengganu were ceded to British control, while Britain recognized Siamese sovereignty over remaining southern provinces. While the brilliance of its kings was crucial, Siam's survival was also profoundly shaped by a simple accident of geography. As the British Empire expanded eastward from India and the French Empire pushed westward from Vietnam, Siam found itself located at the precise meeting point of their ambitions. It became the physical space separating two colossal and often rivalrous imperial projects, making it useful to both as a neutral zone. This culminated in the Anglo-French Agreement of 1896. In this landmark treaty, London and Paris formally agreed to guarantee the integrity of the Chao Phraya River Valley, the heartland of Siam. Siam's status as a buffer was enshrined in international law by the very powers that had threatened its existence. The legacy of this unique history is woven into the very fabric of modern Thailand. The nation's ability to avoid colonization is a source of immense national pride. The figures of King Mongkut and King Chulalongkorn are revered not merely as past monarchs, but as national saviors, the architects of Thai freedom. This history has instilled a deep-seated confidence in a uniquely Thai way of navigating the world. The diplomatic philosophy of being like the bamboo in the wind, bending but not breaking. Throughout the Cold War and into the complex geopolitics of the 21st century, Thailand has continued to balance its relationships with major powers. It is why today, a visitor to Bangkok can see glittering modern shopping malls and ancient golden temples standing side by side. This blend of the old, the new, the foreign, and the indigenous is a direct result of a history of adaptation rather than subjugation. Ultimately, the story of how Siam remained free is more than just a curious footnote in the history of colonialism. It is a powerful saga of resilience, intelligence, and the will to survive. The Kingdom of Thailand, the land of the free, stands today as a living monument to the difficult choices and brilliant maneuvers that allowed it to steer its own course, a proud, unconquered kingdom in a region once dominated by empires.